Hello everyone, this is Dad McCracken and welcome to your Psychoactive sermon number 4 entitled Technological Synchromysticism. And the reason I picked the topic of technological synchromysticism is because of my new book, Transmissions from Outside of Time, which is out now and you can pick up super cheap on Amazon. Highly recommend it. And what this book deals with is the merging of technology and mysticism, or technology and magic, or technology and shamanism. And I think my art for a long time, my art and music, has largely basically dealt with how those things can become increasingly intertwined. And in the year 2013, I sort of embarked on what I considered a weird art project at the time, which involved the merging of both of these things. So to give a little bit of a backstory, this book is a bit of a retro book, and then it kicks it back to the year 2013, which I know we're all getting a little bit nostalgic for. And if you recall, 2013 is the year after 2012. Now, in 2012, of course, I never thought that there was going to be some kind of massive spiritual awakening in 2012 or anything to that effect. In fact, I'm open in saying so. Simultaneously, I would agree. Or moreover, I wasn't going to just discount the fact that the Mayan sorcerers of antiquity were onto something there. That maybe they were in fact tapping into something. More to the point, when you look at the world from a more shamanic or occult perspective, you sort of view it as a continuum of language. And various countercultural authors like Terence McKenna and Grant Morrison and even Daniel Pinchbeck had implanted the idea that there might be some sort of a cultural or spiritual shift into the semiotic structure of language and consciousness itself. So because of that, I was like, fuck it. And I did, for probably the first real time in my life, something that I've been experimenting with for a while, is a full-on acid ritual where I took acid in a very ritualistic context. Like, it wasn't just like, hey, I'm fucking around and wasting my time. Like, I designed a ritual and I executed it. And to make a long story short on that, part of what that ritual was intended to do was to bring my art and music and writing to a larger audience, which didn't really seem to work at the time. At first, in fact, my band that I was in actually completely imploded, but the record we put out did in fact reach a wider audience than anything else I had done before, and it got amazing reviews. And more to the point, right after December 21st, the writing that I'd been doing got picked up by disinfo.com. Now, when this happened, there was something else that was going on in my life in 2012, and that was I was coming to the increasing terms with the fact that I'd initiated, by doing kind of a self-designed psychedelic brand of chaos magic, that I had initiated what classic occultists would refer to as knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel. Now, I actually want to talk about that concept and why I insist on using this term, because it's there over and over again, and I think it's there for a reason. When they're talking about knowledge and conversation with your holy and guardian angel, what I've seen is, on one hand, there is the knowledge, and this comes across like some kind of a fifth dimensional entity that's imparting on me wisdom about the reality that it exists in. Like, here is how we see reality. And I talk about this in some of my other YouTube videos, but essentially what it's showing me is that all consciousness, all human consciousness, all of human reality throughout history to these entities looks like a singular object or an orb or developing planet or star, as if it's a plot line that's coming into existence. Another way of looking at that is it's a story that it can tap in the past, the future, and it can still edit all of these different components, almost like a virtual reality video game that you can port out of and port into wherever you want, that it's one thing. So and I think there's a huge difference between existing outside of time and existing in outside of space. So that is the knowledge aspect of the knowledge and conversation. Now, the conversation has to do with one of the most immediate effects of when I started doing kind of psychedelic sigil magic that I was doing, was that I had this experience where it was as if for about a 6-month period, as if information was being downloaded directly into my brain in my hypnagogic sleep states, by what I would call hypnagogic light entities, jokingly a lot of the time, or what I was calling them sort of at the time. Now, again, what's funny about this is this was going on for about 6 months, and that's the best way I can describe it. It was literally communicated in that metaphor that there were computer processes that were moving faster than I could keep up with. That there was something going on at an unconscious level that was beyond my understanding, and I don't know how this stuff was affecting me or how it led to me lecturing you or talking about this stuff on YouTube right now. But what I do know is that at one point, after this going on for about 6 months, it's as if these entities who were initiated this process were satisfied, and it was like, we're proud of ourselves, we did something. And it took me a while to realize what it is that they did, and I think what it is that they did is they found a means of translating telepathic dream communication, which is kind of like a projected version of reality or dreams, which are kind of metaphors, a more artful way of communicating and direct conscious experience, and they started translating it into words. So it was almost like a telepathy translation or dimensional translation device. And so a better way of putting that is shortly after I realized that I was putting myself in trance states and I was channeling things, essentially. I was here, there was a voice communicating with me, and it took me a while to realize that this was sort of a back and forth thing, that it was responding to what I was thinking about in a lot of cases, and then saying, basically it engaged me and it was like, hey, we're going to start telling you things about your own life. Now again, in the world of psychology, we consider someone hearing voices in their head as to be schizophrenic or crazy. I'm not schizophrenic and crazy, and this wasn't happening when I'm at work or playing music or whatever. It was happening when I was doing magic rituals and on purpose, intentionally putting myself in a trance. So I'd initiated this knowledge and conversation with my holy guardian angel, and I thought, I need to start documenting this better, because you know what, I bet there's I'm missing a lot of stuff. There's so much going on here I'm not keeping up with, so I need to start documenting it. So once my writing got picked up by Disinfo, I said I am going to start writing this stuff right onto Facebook, publicly, for everyone to see. I'm just going to throw it out there, which I definitely started doing. Now, what's weird about this is what I wasn't expecting to do this. Now, the main reason that I was doing this had to do with the fact that Facebook is sort of lame in a way, right? Like Facebook and social media, I mean, MySpace wasn't as bad as Facebook in the fact that Facebook took on all of the super lame aspects of polite society, of like work culture or family culture, where if you have your own profile, you have like, your parents and your wife's parents and work coworkers, so you're gonna keep things pretty close to the cuff and dull. And that was the lame thing with Facebook. So the reason I started doing this initially was to kind of just, really fuck with Facebook, and say, hey, almost like putting graffiti in a public space. Like everybody knew was addicted to this. I wanted people that were looking at, like stupid political stuff to all of a sudden be like, what is this dude talking about weird lucid dreams and communicating with fifth dimensional demon lords, like what the fuck is this? Moreover, I hoped that by means of subtle hypnosis this would potentially open doors in these people's reality who experience these stuff by means of hypnotic sort of subtle hypnotic suggestion, open them to the idea that these potentialities were there, which, according to a lot of people that have contacted me, actually did work. A lot of people have contacted me like, oh, whoa, that's so weird. I've encountered that kind of thing. What you were talking about was right in sync with something that had just happened to me. Stuff like that. So on that level, it worked. Now, when we get into the technological synchromysticism aspect of it, what I didn't realize when doing this, and what I wasn't planning on doing, was tracking psi phenomenon. I did not think that I was going to do this, although I should have suspected as much based on why I felt the need to start documenting this. It was because I was sort of being challenged by these guardian entities that that I was communicating with, to be like, hey, you got to start keeping track of this stuff. And so I did. What I wasn't trying to do was demonstrate psi phenomenon and the precognitive capabilities of dreams, which is something that, weirdly enough, there are some other mainstream scientists exploring this right now. And in the course, where the technological aspect of it comes into is like, since I was posting some of this stuff publicly, I ended up predicting the future quite demonstrably, and you can't go back and say, oh, you're just saying that or whatever, because it's out there in the public space. People saw it, people commented on it. So when I say something, and I had the dream about this happening, and then less than a year later, this exact thing that I had, was having a dreams about, was picking up on in my subconscious states, is suddenly happens, and there's absolutely no way, and some of these things, there's absolutely no way I could have known about this stuff. Like, no way on a conscious level whatsoever. And you have to read the book to get to the details. So it occurred to me that this is the potentiality of technology. We now are being tracked. We're being, there's a record of everything. There's now more of a paper trail on everything. And this gives us the ability to track synchronicity. And just a note about synchronicity to start things off is I think anybody that gets into any kind of serious spiritual practice, that's the result, is your life starts being a series of increasing synchronicities. And what I don't hear people saying about that enough, other than me, is this is life's way of telling you that the scientific materialist idea of a cold, dead universe that you've been raised to accept is bullshit. The fact of the matter is, we are beings of art. We consume art constantly. Our brains create stories around everything. All this is pointing out to you with these synchronicities is that your life has a story, a narrative. And I think a good magic or shamanic practice, the big point of going so far inward, is to say, look at the map and put you on that path of what you're supposed to be doing, right? But again, with the surveillance state and all this, what's going on with things like social media, what we're realizing, what occurred to me is now the rationalist mind is always going to say, but that's just coincidence. Even Robert Anton Wilson, who I'm a huge fan of, would often take that stance. Well, there's bound to be things that line up in some way. It's just random. But with technology these days, you can demonstrate these synchronicities, and so you look at somebody like me who starts experimenting with all these weird spiritual practices, and at some point you're going to look at that and be like, how many of these weird synchronicities can happen around one fucking guy, right? And I encourage everybody else to try this, this kind of experimentation as well, because you'll see it's pretty fucking trippy. And so I'm just going to quickly talk about some of the synchronicities that happen. Some of these aren't actually in this book, but I'm going to write about in future books. So one of them I talk about in this book is I was in a band called Black Science, and we had a song called Theta 8. Now, this song is a reference to an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation called The Royale, where Theta 8 is the planet that they go to. So anyways, my wife, for some reason, saw this episode and one night and was like, oh, you need to watch this again with me. And so I did. I'm not even the biggest. She's the big Next Generation fan, not me. So I watched this episode, right? And she, for some reason, insists that I watch it. On the next Monday morning when I went to work, I realized that right around the same time I'd watched that episode, somebody had bought the exact song Theta 8 by my old band, and just that song. And what's even weird about this is I'd set that album to free, and so they listened to the entire album and said, I want to pay for just that song that's named after the episode that your wife just insisted that you watch. Crazy. And again, there's a paper trail on all this. You could look at our Netflix record and see, oh yes, they did watch that episode, although it might have been on Sci-Fi Channel, so that might be a harder thing to track down. But then I still have the email that somebody bought that song and just that song. Another very interesting example is this. My friend and I made this video that's playing behind us right now. It's from an upcoming film that we're going to put out. Most of it's still on the YouTube channel. You can watch the prototype on the YouTube channel right now, called July 23rd, 1973. It features the head exploding scene from Scanners, right? Now, we finished this and posted it online and did an invite on Facebook for people to come check it out. And a week before that we posted this I posted this video on disinfo.com. Marcy, who was running the site at the time, is a huge David Cronenberg fan, and posted a video about the making of the head exploding scene from Scanners. Now, we just so happened to loop the head exploding scene from Scanners in that video. That is about the trippiest, and now this can all be demonstrated. We posted this video that loops the head exploding scene from Scanners as a background layer, and shortly thereafter, shortly before I post this on the site, the girl who runs the Disinfo site posts a video about the making of the head exploding scene from Scanners. This can all be now verified technologically. Well, anyways, this video is getting kind of long. Again, I could talk about this forever, but technological synchromysticism is the concept that when you start externalizing your internal processes in by means of technology and recording them, it is now possible to demonstrate the synchronous nature of the universe in a way that will make it compelling and difficult for the rational part of your mind and the rational part of everyone's mind to accept, and force us to an awakening that what we understand about reality and consciousness is so limited, and then looking from things from this purely materialist standpoint without looking internally is just, it's just ignorant and wrong as thinking that the earth is flat, as long as thinking that the sun revolves around the earth. So anyways, check out my new book, Transmissions from Outside of Time. Again, a really cheap download, and I will talk to you all soon here.